Hi, this is Eric Martin, Report Game Geek. I'm here with Peter Gooses for Van Ryder Games.
Yes.
Actually, MVP Board Games is a design studio.
Correct.
But Salvation Road is published by Van Ryder Games.
Correct.
And I was hoping you could give an overview of what we're doing here.
All right, so Salvation Road is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players.
Okay.
We actually do have 2 scenarios in the book that play up to 8 players, and it plays in 60 to 90 minutes, even with the 8-player scenarios.
Okay.
So you're not adding extra time when you're adding extra players.
Okay.
In the game, you are a bunch of survivors. You have a compound, and what you found out, the compound's been very safe for a long time, but your radiator's about to explode. So that's what brings the time pressure in. So you now realize that you have to get out of Dodge. So you've heard about this place called Salvation on the shortwave radio. You're basically trying to gather enough supplies, not only for the heroes in the game, but also for all the women, children, infirmed that are in your compound.
Okay.
So you know that there's going to be a big explosion here, so you have to go out and start hunting for things, gathering it, bringing it back to take it on this truck that you will then take on your trip to Salvation. And your goal is to gather these resources. The problem is, as you're going out, the Marauders aren't too happy with you raiding their supplies and caches and things like that.
Okay.
Now, this isn't an outright combat game, and actually the cover actually does a really good job of showing, you know, the Marauders are heavily armed, things like that. You're a group of survivors over here. A lot of people think this is one of your hostages, but this is the Screamer character, and I will get into a little bit later. That's one of the unique parts about Salvation Road is you're controlling 2 characters, one of which is a hero, the other of which is a survivor.
Okay.
And those survivors have the exact same actions available to them as the heroes, but they just don't do them quite as well, and they have negative effects. Like the Screamer, whenever he's at a location, he increases the threat at that location by 1.
Okay.
The Careless Kid, every time he comes back to the compound, he brings more Marauders with him, not covering his trail really good.
All right.
So you can do things, though, to mitigate that. So, like, the Careless Kid can gather resources and then trade them to people he's at the location with, and they can bring it back.
Okay.
And so there are things you can do for most of these things to try to mitigate it, and that's really where the skill and learning comes in when you're playing the game.
All right, so we have a whole bunch of characters here.
Yep. So the heroes have the blue, and the survivors have the red names.
Okay.
And so, like Emily, these circles here represent their health and also their carrying capacity. Emily's a kid. She is one of our heroes. She doesn't have a lot of carrying capacity, but instead of getting a normal 2 actions, she gets 3 actions every turn.
Okay.
Whereas Dante, he's a little more tough. His special ability, he's got his dog Gunner with him, and he can send the dog to trade resources even at somebody at a different location. So he can either gather or gain. Where somebody like Jose is a coward, when he is at a location with people, he increases the threat of that location like anybody else, but he was a magician in his former life, that's why the cards are there, and he pulled the disappearing trick really well. That's the only trick he'd really mastered. So he can never take wounds when he's at a location. So he increases the threat there, but everybody else at the location's got to take those wounds for him.
All right.
So you have these, and as you can see, it's very thematic, but it's also very streamlined. You know, our quick reference guide, basically on your turn, you're going to be taking one of your characters and doing one of very few actions. You can either be moving to a location, so you can move from any location to any other location. Okay. The first time you move to a location, you're going to reveal it. There are going to be some resources already there, so as you can see, there's some food and medicine there already when we go. You're also going to put a threat marker on there.
Because you went there.
Because you went there, every location has threat. Now, every character has special abilities, but every location has special abilities too.
Okay.
And so, one of the other things you can do on your turn is either your character special ability or your location special ability.
Okay.
So you can move, you could do that, you could gather. So very simply, if we had Jose over here, he could take one resource and put it on one of his capacity spots.
Okay.
These spots are interesting because they do 2 things. They're not only your carrying capacity, but they're also your wound capacity.
And as you get wounded,
you can carry less. Now, these resources are good for 2 things. Not only are they what you need to win the game, so the goal is to bring them back, put them on the truck, and take them with you at the end of the game. But you're also going to need them throughout the course of the game because, again, the Marauders, the environment, everything's against you. As you take wounds, for example, one of the actions you can use, you can discard one of these valuable medicines you've taken to remove 3 wounds.
Okay.
Now, throughout the game, these wounds are going to start flipping over. Sometimes they're just, you get woozy, and you get tipped over, and so for one action, you just stand back up and you can do your normal actions.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just a flesh wound. Guess what? You're lucky.
Okay.
Not permanent damage. Other times they're permanent injuries. Now, when you want to heal one of these flipped wounds over, for 1 med, you only get to flip or to discard 1 of these.
Okay.
So once you let them fester, it's harder to get rid of those wounds. So another thing is, when you do have to reveal these wounds, you have an option of bandaging yourself up temporarily. You can discard that same med again, the things you need to get out of here, just to stop these from flipping over.
Okay.
So every resource in the game, bullets, meds, food, gas, they all have secondary uses that will help you get to the end of the game. The problem is you're going to need them for your trip and you're traveling.
Right.
And so that's really the delicate balance that you're gonna do, and it all plays in 60 minutes again.
Okay. I assume these are Marauder.
These are Marauders. So there's 2 different types. It's basically just the difference. So you're going to start putting them around the fence. You can use bullets to get rid of them, or you can go out and fight them. Now, if you go out and fight them with your bare hands, you will be taking wounds when you do that.
Right.
And so we have these custom dice that you will roll to determine how many wounds you're taking as you are going out and fighting them. That is not as efficient a way of doing it. But again, if you really need bullets for the end of the game, so right here, we get a little information as we're scouting. So one of these locations is going to be a recon location, which will help us scout out the road ahead. In fact, we can even use it to find out exactly what we're going to need on the road ahead. So here we need 4 ammo and 1 fuel to make this part of the trip. There's a rock slide, you're going to need to use your ammo to blow it up.
Okay.
And get past that part of the road. So it doesn't take a lot of fuel because you're not going far, but there is a rock slide in your way. So you got to figure out what these obstacles are going to be at the end. Now, depending on how these come out, you'll have more or less information. If you have like here, you have 2 medicine, so you know it's going to gravitate towards the middle. Whereas here, this was an extreme example of you
ammo
need 4 and 1. So you know you need a combination of 5 resources, but you don't know, you're always going to need fuel, and you need another resource to travel along each stretch of the road.
Okay. All right. And so at the end, you just have to actually fulfill all of these.
Yep. So all you have to do
order to
is
make it out.
have all the resources you need on the truck, have everyone at the compound, no person's left behind,
Okay.
and if you've got enough to fulfill it, at the end you win.
Okay.
Now we do have various scenarios which change it up in the book. I think there's 8 to 10 scenarios in the book.
Right.
So on one of the scenarios, like, you travel to different towns along the way.
Right.
So usually it's just one big, you got enough or you don't, and you travel. But on one scenario, it actually gets too dangerous as you're going along that you gotta hop as you're going. So you're gonna go through a couple at a time until you make your final trip.
right.
One of the scenarios, you have a hostage with you. You got to keep him with you. He increases your threat everywhere you go. If you don't keep him with you, though, he runs off and you immediately lose. And you know,
because your
alerts.
location's revealed, and I guess.
Yeah, well, he knows the secret way in. He left the door
Right.
open, the back door open. So
Okay.
I will point out one character. I just love this art on this character, the Oblivious character. Just the concept of someone who has no idea what's going on. She's just hanging out. Again, one of the survivors. They can do the exact same move, gather. You can search for more resources. Every time you search, the threat at your location goes up. So you're going to be rolling more and more dice, basically, to see how many wounds the territory takes. You mitigate it with bullets, but this character here, at the end of the refresh phase, put out, so basically says because she's so oblivious, she can no longer use these helpful location abilities wherever she is. So again, you just have to learn to mitigate it. She can do exactly what, Dante, one of the heroes, can do.
But at the right time.
At the right time.
At the right time we do that. All right. Thanks very much for the overview, Peter.
Absolutely.
Salvation Road.